Rains continue pouring. Nigeria is witnessing an unexpected twist in weather patterns, with excess rainfall sweeping across various regions. Earlier predictions had warned of a deluge that would persist towards the year's end. And now, the reality is being felt across the nation. The equations across the board is what are some of the benefits of this type of rainfall, and how best can Nigerians utilize this season? While the heavy rains have brought with them challenges such as flooding, erosion, and disruption of daily life, they also present unique opportunities. On this program, we'll be delving into the effects of this excessive rainfall and explore innovative ways in which Nigeria can harness this natural resource to mitigate its negative impacts and foster sustainable development. Welcome to Nigeria Today. I'm your carrier, Clinton. Thanks for joining us. Joining us for the discussion via Zoom from Kaduna is Professor Emmanuel Adanu. He's the Director General, National Water Resources Institute, Kaduna. He was one-time Chairman, Technical Committee, Presidential Committee on Prevention of Flood Disaster. You're welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thank you very much.
Now also, here in the studio with us we have Dr. Emeka Okengwu. He's a development economist. He's also a farmer, a big one for that matter. Yeah, welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Now, I'll start with you, Dr. Emeka. Now, tell us, how would you describe this rainfall?
How would you describe water? Okay. Water is life. And rainfall is that very free gift of nature, free gift of life, that most of the times we call it showers of blessings. And way back in those days, you found out that one of the most joyous moments were when kids, ran into the rain, to go and welcome it, because it now, beckons a new season, a new beginnings, time for things to begin to grow. So water is not only life. Water is us. Water is existence. Water is the primary reason why man is alive. Okay, you can survive without food, for some length of period of time. But I don't think you can survive, without water, for more than maybe 80, 70, 120 hours, because 70% of your body mass is water. So let's first and foremost put water at the heart of what we're talking about, so that when you begin to now call it rainfall, people know that we're talking about water. So it's important, it's central, it's critical.
Okay, now we're talking about the excess rainfall.
Beautiful.
What do you
Now, this is where you now start talking about what you're doing with this free gift of nature. You will never have excess of rainfall, if you're able to manage and control it. In fact, in some climes like China, they've made it possible that they even freeze their rainwater and then be able to use it off season. Okay. Look at us, talking about a lot of our lands, we are losing it, to desertification. We've lost close to, 12,000, between 12,000 to 15,000, kilometers of land, all right, to desertification, drought. Okay, so when you have this amount of, rain coming, what should be uppermost is how are we able, to capture as much of it as we can, and is it possible for us to be able to, utilize what it is that is now creating all this havoc, as much as we can? Yes, the one word will be channels. Okay, the moment you build channels, then there's any water that drops. In fact, you'll be very excited and glad that not only is rain, coming in excess, that people who also have dams are releasing the water to you. Because when you build these channels, what happens is that you can be able to repopulate your existing rivers, make your river transport, a little bit more easier to navigate. You can repopulate, your dams. You can repopulate, your oceans. You can repopulate, and first and most of all, be able to now get all the water you need in your farmlands. So the key word and the missing link is, what are we doing to manage, this, what we are now calling disaster.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Professor Emmanuel, now we are facing what many would describe as excess rainfall. Now, how can this excess rainfall be turned from a challenge to opportunity?
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't know what you define an excess rainfall. No, we have seasons, and this is a season for rainfall. We have dry seasons too. Now, what we are terming excess water now is because it's falling heavily in the rainy season. Now, if you look at water management generally, for a nation to manage its water properly, before we start terming excess water and all this, we must understand the drainage pattern, the total rainfall the country takes in a year, and the distribution over the year. We already know this in Nigeria, and we know at this time of the year, we have a lot of rainfall. I wouldn't say excess rainfall, just a lot of rainfall, because it's the season for it. Now, harvesting the water is very important and is very key. It is nice that my colleague there is a farmer, I'll put it that way. He knows the value of water. He knows when he needs water. And he knows over the year, the whole of the year, the periods he will need some volume of water, and the periods we also need certain volume that may not be the same across the year or his farming period. Now, in Nigeria, we know our rainfall pattern. We have the rainy and dry seasons, and the rainfall pattern increases from the north to south. The rainfall, the precipitation increases from the north to south. Now, we have environments in Nigeria that this rain, when they fall, what we call hydrological areas, it's just like compartments of water moving in different directions. We have 8 of them, and each one of them has its own volume of water. It discharges every year when it rains. Now, conserving this water, you must know the country must have a national water resources master plan. You will study it, know exactly when the water comes and where it goes, where it is required more than other areas, and then come out with a master plan. There was a master plan we produced in 1995. Now in 2013 it was updated. And this master plan has outlined all the necessary areas we can preserve our water for future use. One of the key areas is damming. The dam can also be used to provide for hydro, for irrigation. So we have different ways of preserving water. Now let me tell you one thing that is very important that we always ignore. Forests are very, very important water because they retain water, they prevent flooding, they reduce flooding, and retain water under the ground for use at periods when the water is, when the overland flow is drying. Between 1995 and 2013, Nigeria has lost 20% of its groundwater. 20%, about 10 billion cubic meters of water. We're trying to find out what happened. There are very simple explanations that one can just come up with, but we are not too sure whether those explanations are enough for anybody to take home. So we're still doing researches in them. So in maintaining this steady either decline in groundwater and increase in the overland flow, we have to understand what is happening in the country. We are developing excessively now. Towns are now coming out with laws and laws of how do you call it, estates. We pave the land, we build roads, we build industries. These environments are environments that preclude flow of water into the ground. So these are areas we consider. What laws are there to prevent this? Because the overland flow is getting too much.
Would come back to you so that you give us, some of these, points you're about to raise. Now, back to you, Dr. Emeka. Now, like Prof rightly mentioned, you're a farmer. And of course, during the introduction, we did say that you're a farmer. Now, how does this excess rainfall impact agricultural productivity? Now, talking about both positively and negatively.
Okay, I think it's proper we juxtapose and contextualize the word farmer. Because to the average person, the farmer is that person who goes into the farmland with a hoe, machete, maybe with 2 or 3 wives trailing behind him with baskets on their head. I am not that kind of farmer. What we are doing is to do what we call disruptive food production, meaning that we're trying to say that as a nuclear physicist and scientist, you can actually go into food production, which is what it is we're trying to do. So we're trying to say we are no longer looking at seasons, we're now looking at cycles. That's the kind of farmer I am. Okay, when you come to my center, year in, year out, you are seeing crops growing, but not necessarily, on the ground. Now you hear about agroponics, you hear about aquaponics, you hear about, vertical farming, you hear about virtual farming. These are all farmers. Some of us do go to, our farms, and after that we attend wedding ceremonies. So point I'm trying to make is that the management of water to my kind of farm, is what you might see in a little bit more developed countries, where you talk about now feeding that plant exactly what amount of volume of water it needs. So I am that kind of farmer that is backed looking for new technologies and not new energies, not new bronze. I'm not looking for agile, healthy, bulky young men to be carrying hose and following me up and down. I'm looking for those things that can be able to now make it possible, for us to be able to, not now have a season called season of tomato, not now be controlled, by our times and seasons. Now, when we say we'll have rain and we'll have excess rain, fine. What we can do is to be able to capture, store, and then properly utilize these rains to be able to do, food production. And that is the kind of farming that we're encouraging. Now, right now, without necessarily advertising myself, right here in Abuja, we are growing practically every species of the new, cassava stems. Okay, from the ayaya to what they call the hope to Obasanjo.
Sorry to cut you there. You talked about your type of management of water.
Yes.
The type of management of water you do is the type that is seen outside the country. What is that type?
No, but I just told you, I just mentioned it. If you go to greenhouses, you don't see people, you just see, it happens in Nigeria. It's not just only me. You're talking about sprinklers, where you go into a farm and you don't necessarily see somebody, running from one end of the farm to the other to be able to get the plants to get water. All he needs to do is to turn a knob, okay, and then you see the plants getting, the water they need, be it, in a controlled environment, be it even in the open field or open air. So that way now, water now becomes that critical, resource that you look forward to getting. You are looking forward to rains. You'll be looking forward to floods. Unlike where, you now have a situation where any day it rains, what we are looking forward to seeing on NTA is how many houses have been brought down, people who flood that carried away, how many farms the floods have destroyed, how it's going to now, contribute to food insecurity. But I need to also say this, I think the Ministry of Agriculture, is doing something. There's a program that they are promoting now called the Homestead, Accelerated Food Production Program, which is happening even in the UK. Because when you're talking about food insecurity, and it's important to say this, it's not only, to us in Nigeria, 41 million Americans are food insecure. Today, 1 out of every 5 households in the UK that have kids are depending on food, support. But what are they doing? They are not folding their hands. They're introducing what they call the urban agricultural systems, where they are now even now designing their houses to be able to now grow foods on their rooftops. Then, meaning that their water management and reticulation system now captures, where you also now are able to feed, those plants or crops either on your roof or on your backyard. Okay. So, water management, you carry very simply. It's a shameful thing that as a country we are discussing flood instead of discussing water management. We should have been talking about strategies that can be able to get this water into our desert areas. You know, this would have been what it is. And there was a program that they had started. You know, that dam was supposed to be in that Bauchi. I'm sure Professor Dano, you know, would throw more light on it, because I think he was director of dams at one time.
Okay.
You know, and he was supposed to control this water and then rechannel it even back into the Lake Chad, for crying out loud.
I will have to stop you here, Dr. Emeka. So we'll bring Professor Dano into this conversation. Now, Prof, Dr. Emeka has mentioned quite you know, an important point here, talking about you know, management of the water. Rather than talking about flooding, we should be talking about managing the water. You know, channeling it to, you know, more positive ventures. Now, how can technology be leveraged to improve the utilization of excess, you know, rainfall, even in whether short term or long term?
Well, there was in 2022. There was this committee set up by the former president, and it was to see how we can mitigate the disasters arising from flooding. And we had 10 strategies. One of the strategies was, how do you use flood water for the economy of Nigeria? And we dwelled on that very, very seriously, because flood water is very, very important. Now, we went around the country after the flood of 2022. We went around the country, flood, devastated environment, and we interviewed a lot of people. And they told us that we asked them, could you be moved from here to other places so that this disaster will not befall you annually? And they told us no, that the resource they depend on here is flood water. But what we can do for them is just to reduce the amount of the flooding that occurs. So they are very, very concerned about the intensity of flood, not flood itself. They would rather have the water. So we have programs too to move this water to those environments that they will use the water effectively. Now, my friend there, my brother also, who is a farmer, is talking about water management in a very complex way. And that is the only way we can do it. Water management has to take the central place because people think we have enough water in Nigeria to cater for everybody. We don't. Because the total volume of water in Nigeria will have today circulating annually is about 374 billion. 200 of it goes to the ocean. And we have not put up facilities that can retain this water for use. If he is a farmer, I would say, he needs this water at all times. He's trying to maximize the use of this water by using technology. If you allow him and you have the water available, his technology might just be, just to apply the very, very sensitive crops to some water to some crops that are sensitive to, because he knows exactly which amount of water is required for which crop. He's doing that. Now, what if you are not a farmer and you need this water for something else? Maybe you generate electricity. Maybe you are an industrialist. You use it for industrial activities, cooling of your plants and all this. So we have to find a way of using this water effectively for whatever vocation anybody undertakes. If you look at, I'm going a bit philosophical, if you look at the coat of arms of Nigeria, what is in front there? It's just the two rivers, like a Y shape, then the crops under there. So it's telling you already that this country intends to protect agriculture using the water available from the two main rivers. But are we doing that? It is good that Doc is there now talking about this. It's very important. We need to see how we use this water effectively. And please, let's not think that this water, you see, it has been raining since day before yesterday in some places, and here. let's not think that it's just excess water and it's going. It's because we have not been able to harness it that we're calling it excess water. We need that water for anything. And the water you have moving around, whether underground or over land, is the water you have as your save. So if, like, let me just tell you what happened a few days ago, about 4 days ago. I was in very early in the morning. I got a call. And then there was a video. Water was oozing from the ground, one part of the north. Seriously, and the whole farm was flooded. And they were singing incantations and saying, wait, something is happening. And all. I had to send my scientists there. They came back yesterday. And what happened is it's groundwater from somewhere that was coming out, which means the environment will be saturated. We need to protect this environment for farmers. And it's between KB and Sokoto. Very incidentally. So groundwater management is very, very important. Let's not that we see in the rains today all over the country is excess water. It's because we're harnessing that we're turning it excess. Now, he talked about dams, where there are some dams that are meant to take water, recharge the groundwater.
Thank you very much, Prof. Now we'll bring in Dr. Emeka. Prof has said quite a lot of things. I know, of course, even you mentioned that the government is doing quite a lot. But what more can the government do to maximize the excess rains we have?
Well, he said it all. I'll give you a typical example with what they call tail-race runoff. There are certain seasons where you see that your energy dips. And those seasons that you see that your energy dips is actually when, you open the penstock of, most of the dams that generate electricity to release water. And when you now, open those penstocks, the water now starts, they call it the tail-race runoff. But there are countries like Sudan is able to generate about 270 kilowatts of electricity as almost enough for the whole country from their tail-race runoffs. Okay, what is a tail-race runoff? Just, dig holes as that water is flooding down and then put small, turbines there to spin. It's important I tell you why I had wanted Prof to talk a little bit about the dams. And sometimes when you bring academics into this program, it's important to let him alone so that we're able to benefit fully, from what he's talking about. There's a farm program on Kaduna Express Road, okay? That program was supposed to be building a dam around the beginning of that express road that could actually now irrigate 200 kilometers of that land from Abuja to Kaduna. We're just not talking about, water management vis-a-vis farm, okay? You now have hotels like the Hilton that are actually even using their sewage water and they're reticulating it, for people to bath and even drink. It becomes very clean water. So like I said to you in the beginning, water is life, Eukarya. And the applications you give to it, why people like me, I didn't read agriculture, I'm an economist. Why I'm into what I am into is to become that model, for young people to know that you can be, a farmer and still, carry around a PhD and still be very proud. You don't have to be dirty to be a farmer. And today we are faced with this, national crisis of food insecurity. Why? Because there is a back end to our food insecurity, which everybody seems to be neglecting. And it is one word called climate change. Everything that is triggering today is as a result of climate change. It's just that because we don't have time to get into the technical details, flooding can also now even, do what they call saline intrusion. You can carry saline, you can actually poison your agricultural land, when it's now carrying arsenic, or poisoned earth, from a long distance, like what happened in Zamfara when you had the arsenic poisoning. That flood, that earth, okay, that gathered in Zamfara can actually be transported all across the country just by flooding. So you're just not talking about flooding destroying farmlands. It's also a top health, and even national security challenge. So it's not okay, oh, flood water, what do we, okay, catch it and hold it. There needs to be a lot of planning. Profs have talked about hydrology mapping. You need a lot of drilling. You need a lot of geological surveys to be able to actually now get your groundwater. I'm happy to hear that we're now, investigating our hydrological levels. I didn't know. But
Thank
it's
you.
okay. You know, it's fine.
Thank
It's
you,
okay.
thank you very much. This is where we draw the curtain on today's episode of Nigeria Today. Very big thank you to Dr. Emeka Okingu, development economist and also a farmer, a big-time farmer.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
A disruptive
And also,
farmer.
Eh?
Disruptive
A
farmer.
disruptive farmer. Okay, thank you for that. Now, we also had we had Professor Emmanuel Adanu. He's the Director General, National Water Resources Institute, Kaduna. Thank you so much for your time and your contribution. And to our viewer, thank you for being, for always being part of this. Remember, the program Nigeria Today airs weekdays at 7:30 p.m. on NTU News 24. You can also watch a repeat at 10 p.m. tonight, as well as other episodes on www.youtube.com/NTU News 24 Hub. I am Ikaria Clinton. Do have a wonderful weekend.